Hello, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. It's great to see a full house. I want to thank all our special guests that are here, Mile One, Custom Broker Arturo Dominguez, and everybody else that's here. I want to give a special shout out to the students of the Academy of Global Business and Advanced Technology at United South High School. Thank you guys for being here. They're also students through our dual program. So we're very happy that we're able to be here today. So thank you for joining us for another session here at the GLC Logistics Lecture Series. These lectures are designed to connect our students with real professionals who are shaping the logistics and distribution industry. And today's speaker embodies exactly why this series matters. It is my honor to introduce Mr. Luca Winters. He is the Vice President for U.S.-Mexico Cross-Border Logistics at Kuehne Nagel. He brings more than 13 years of experience in customs, business development, and cross-border operations, including his leadership as a general manager for Southern Border at C.H. Robinson. His academic background in international relations, shaped by his studies in Miami and Mexico City, gives him a global perspective that enriches his work across one of North America's most critical trade corridors. I first met Luca several years ago. He reached out to me because my students back in the high school had passed the certified customs specialist exam. And that gesture of him calling me to congratulate my students turned into an invitation for him to speak at a career day. My students really connected with him, and I felt that when they left that lecture, they were hopeful to see the possibilities that are available for them within the logistics and distribution industry. Today, he'll be sharing his insights on automotive logistics and supply chain, a topic that sits at the heart of our region's economic engine. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Luca Winters.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Claudia, obviously, and the college for having me here. It's really my honor to be here. I want to do a couple of things today. One, I want to briefly discuss kind of my journey into logistics, and then also at a very high level, obviously go over the reason why we're here, right? So what is automotive logistics? What is nearshoring? What is the market doing right now? And then just give you a brief insight into a company like Kuehne Nagel, how we participate in that market. How many of you, show of hands, are here because you wanted to get out of class today? One, just one, that's pretty good. All right. Well, I'm gonna try to make this as interactive as possible. So don't think that you just came here and you're just gonna cruise on an hour and then be out. There'll be a couple of Q&As throughout the presentation. So I first arrived in Laredo in 2012, and unlike you guys, logistics was not on my radar. I didn't go to school for logistics. And so I kind of want to touch on that because as young people at this stage in your life, you might be at a stage where you say, I think I'm doing one thing, but I'm not really sure where it's going to lead to. Is there any possibility of the future? And I've been there, done that, right? So one of the things that's not on my resume, and it's actually one of the things that I'm most proud of, and I should include it on my resume in retrospect, is I started my college career. I graduated from the University of Miami in 2002. Some of you were probably not even born then. That's okay. But I didn't start at University of Miami. That's where I graduated from. I started my college career actually in Chula Vista, California, at a college called Southwestern Community College. It's called Southwestern College now. It was a 2-year degree. I was studying just my basics, right? Just to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I thought at the time maybe I was going to go into law. I was very argumentative as a child, and my mom said, you should probably be a lawyer. That would be good for you. But it was the best part of my entire college career was those 2 years there. Why? You have an excellent staff. teachers that are available to you anytime, right? You have excellent programs. You have sense of community. You have small classes. And I think these are all the same things that Laredo College is offering you right now. So think about this as the beginning of your journey. It doesn't have to be the end of your journey, right? From there, I was fortunate enough to get some help to go to the University of Miami. And then I was able to take advantage of some international foreign exchange student programs, and I was able to go to Laredo in Mexico City. When I graduated in 2002, right after a tragedy happened in the United States in 2001. I thought I wanted to go in. My degree is in international relations. I wanted to go work for the State Department. As we all know, September 11th, 2001 changed the history of this country. And the government shut down. And I didn't know then what I was going to do, right? I had a lot of friends going to law school. In retrospect, that didn't really seem fun. But through my experience in Mexico City, I've made friends with some people who were in the logistics industry. So as chaos and the world was changing in the United States, I decided to go to Mexico. That's how I got into this business. I didn't know or realize at that time that this was going to lead to a lifelong career. But I went there. It was adventurous, very small company, mostly exporting furniture. And most of that furniture was crossing here in Laredo. Almost every single shipment that we were shipping through Laredo was getting stopped by customs, one reason or another reason. So I kept coming to Laredo to figure out what's going on. Why is this being stopped? It's a real hassle. And so that my first time in Laredo was actually specifically start figuring that out. And then after about the 10th trip, I said, wow, this is really complex. I think there's something here. Not only is it complex, but it's a challenge. You're always having to solve something every single day, right? And that's really attracted me. So I came here. That's kind of how I got started. So it's not, I tell you that because it's not a traditional path, right, to get into this business. But as you can see, if you decide to stay in this business, the sky's the world. When I arrived here in 2012, the first team that I managed, I would tell them, you don't know, but we're at the center of the world. And if you're from here, I think, no, we're not at the center. What's going on? What does this guy mean? Yeah, well, 40% of all trade with the United States passes through this port. We get to see things that are going to happen in the United States before they're actually happening. We get to see things that are going to make the news before they're making the news. Right? Fast forward, I feel a little vindicated because now Laredo is front and center. We have a spotlight on us. We have programs like this, programs at TEMU. Those things didn't exist when I first got here. But for all of those of you who are from Laredo, who are looking to get out of Laredo, I understand, 100%, I understand. But take advantage of what's actually available in your community right now. And the fact of the matter is, we are the #1 logistics community in the entire United States. And I would argue that with anybody at any time. This is an awesome, awesome place and community to start your career in logistics. The only thing I hope, being based out of Laredo, is that if you leave Laredo, consider coming back to Laredo. Because my biggest challenge that I have right now is attracting and retaining talent. So for all of you that are going to be graduating from either here or being fed into TEMU, you can start your career here, and we allow us meaning companies like Kuehne Nagel, to be the door to your logistics career. We're a global company. We have over 80,000 employees, offices in every single major city in the world. So if you're really looking to get out, start here, have a conversation with me after this presentation. Okay? Our goal, and my goal personally, independent of the company that I work for, is provide back to the community. I want to see everyone be successful, and the more people that we can get from Laredo and send out into the logistics world, the better it is for Laredo. Right? So with that said, we're going to be speaking a little bit of super high level, but I also, like I said, want this to be interactive, right? I'm going to go through this relatively quickly because I definitely want to make sure that there's time for questions and answers afterwards as well. How many people, mostly in the back and on this side of the room, you guys can't answer right here. I've heard of nearshoring. Couple. All right. Good. So you'll learn something new today. That's good. So the first article I wrote about nearshoring was in 2013. I think it was probably starting to become more of a marketing concept or a logistical concept that 3PLs, so companies like who I work for, were starting to take over and turn into a marketing. But really, it really dates back. It was a repackaging of the Maquiladora program all the way from the 60s. Right? Nearshoring is really just what do you think that means? If you're not familiar with the term, what do you think that means? Break it down. Near, proximity, right? Shoring, that's 50-50. That could go either way, right? This is a concept, and particularly a word that in logistics you'll be hearing a lot more of. Okay? We'll get into it a little more, but I just want to lay that out, paint the picture, because this is a driving force behind trade with US, Mexico, and particularly trade here in Laredo. So, if nearshoring means proximity, we're sitting on the border with Mexico, proximity to Mexico, right? What other concepts are there in nearshoring? We have a shared language, shared culture, shared time zone. These are all advantageous things that are shared between the United States and Mexico, right? We go back to the 60s and look at the Maquiladora program. That was really regionally focused along the border. And I think that one of the intentions of nearshoring was to open all of Mexico up, right? Not just along the border region. A couple other things I want to call out on this slide. Oops, give you a little preview of what's to come. Holy smokes. Where are we going here? There we go. Is this right here. We talk a lot about USMCA. Do we know what USMCA is? Free trade agreement, right? The largest free trade agreement in the world, really, between the United States and Mexico and Canada. But that could be changing later. So there's a lot of focus. There's a lot of focus on this USMCA free trade agreement, right? But I think what falls through the cracks there is that Mexico, independent of the trade agreement with the United States and Canada, has an additional 14 free trade agreements with other countries in the world, representing over an additional 50 countries. So Mexico in 2012, 2013 did something very, very smart. They created an EMEX program. EMEX program was really a reiteration of the Maquiladora program. And what they did, and the reason why they created it, is because they needed to figure out a way to attract foreign direct investment into their country and take advantage of the Maquiladora program. If you're in Mexico, you're a foreign company, you want to go do business in Mexico, you really can't, if you're a foreign company, without being fully owned or the majority owned within Mexico, unless you qualify for the EMEX program, which, super high level, is just a preferential manufacturing program for foreign companies, right? But this attracted all of the foreign direct investment into Mexico, meaning that you could offset, you could be a foreign company, you could go to Mexico, you could offset a lot of the taxes that are associated with doing business, and then combine that with the free trade agreement, USMCA, that exists. So that creates cross-border logistics, essentially, right? High level. You get all of the raw material, everything that goes in production under this specialized manufacturing program into Mexico. Foreign businesses want to go and build in Mexico. And now we're sitting right next to our largest consumer market, which is the United States. You get tax benefits of the production raw materials going in, and then a tax benefit under USMCA coming out to be able to sell your final product. So this is what's pushing the market. Right? This is the power of nearshoring. But it's not just nearshoring. I want to make sure to call out that Mexico is very, very smart in the way that they set that up. See if I can get this right. There we go. So what's driving the market right now? I'm going to speak a little about automotive logistics. For the past 10 years, number one commodities going northbound and southbound have been commodities that are associated with the automotive industry or the automotive vertical. By and large, automotive trade between the countries, singularly number one. Okay? But if you look at from 2012, 2013, there's been a diversification in the marketplace. And so the way Mexico has managed that diversification has been through these clusters. So now we see aerospace, we see electronics, we see medical technology. A large one is this right here. So Jalisco, Guadalajara, electronics, they're known as the Silicon Valley of Mexico, right? What do you think's driving, just having a conversation for this presentation with Dr. Covarrubias. Thank you very much for being here. What do you think's driving this? What do you think's driving electronics in today's day and age? Something you guys know way more about than myself. I just had a little robot out here earlier. AI, exactly. But we're seeing AI not only take over our work here in the United States and in education, but also in international trade, right? So for the first time, automotive has actually been about flat, slightly down year over year, still leading the market. If you look at all the commodities that go into supporting the AI infrastructure in the United States, that's grown 100% year over year. So diversification of the type of manufacturing that's happening in Mexico, extremely important. So now we think about diversification, all of the different other free trade agreements that Mexico has independent of USMCA, right? Now we start seeing a power and the place in the world that Mexico is carving out for itself. But at an automotive level, as I said, historically, automotive commodities have led cross-border trade, still does. Automotive supply chain is probably the most intricately advanced supply chain that exists in the entire world. Okay? We have customers, and I can tell you, we're highly diversified in the automotive market, but we have customers on both sides of the border where a single truck will cross the border up to 20 times for the production of a finished vehicle. So there's this symbiosis that exists now between plants. Okay? We have the big three automakers, obviously, that have taken advantage of this for years, starting from the maquiladora, going into EMEX, now into the nearshoring. But again, speaking about diversification, what else do we see outside of the big three? We see a lot of German companies, a lot of Korean companies. And the one thing that's not noted on this slide that should be noted on this slide, I'm trying to see a lot of Chinese companies enter into the marketplace as well. I was reading a stat the other day that BYD, they're one of the largest Chinese automakers in the world. They sold 1 in 5 cars in Mexico. Think about that. I think it was under like a 5-year period. 1 in 5 cars. Do you think that that provides risk to the United States if 1 in 5 cars in Mexico now are being produced and they're Chinese? Did anyone hear about Liberation Day? Okay. Liberation Day has been the singular thing that's happened, or the Trump tariffs, okay, the Chinese tariff war. So now the United States is very, very motivated to get Mexico aligned. And Mexico just came out and said, we're going to put 100% tariff on any Chinese electric vehicles coming in to Mexico to be sold at the consumer level in Mexico. So what's going to happen? Chinese automakers are going to go and set up shop. They're going to set up their own plants in Mexico. What's the benefit of that? Now they're a Mexican company. They can sell to a large consumer market in the United States, which is not going to happen in this administration's tenure. But where else are there consumer markets? Central America, South America. Mexico is now becoming the anchor, not only in automotive, but they're becoming the anchor for the Western Hemisphere from a manufacturing perspective. Right? So that's something that's super, super critical. But again, there's complexity. Does anyone know how many parts are in an in a finished car? Take a guess. 500? Any mechanics here? I'm not a mechanic, so. Hundreds. Thousands. Tens of thousands. Right? So if I have a plant in Michigan, am I going to be getting all of my parts from Michigan? Do you think I can source all of those parts in the United States? No. I can't source all of those parts in the United States. One, because what else happens if the production line is sitting in Mexico? Who else sits there? The suppliers to that production line. They want to be as close as possible to that production line, right? These are the things that are creating this symbiotic relationship, specifically in the automotive industry. Does anyone remember the pandemic? Yeah. We had this concept of nearshoring pre-pandemic of what we just discussed. There's a lot of similarities, a lot of shared values between both countries. Nearshoring was put to the test during the pandemic. And I really feel like that's where it was nearshoring's moment. Why? Because we had a tremendous amount of instability in the marketplace. This exposed the reliance on Chinese-driven supply chains into the United States. And every single shipper in the world that was trying to sell into the United States had to create a contingency plan. And where did they go for that contingency plan? Mexico. But now, what we see nearshoring is evolving. It's also becoming integrated into international supply chains to say, hey, I want to take a reliance off of China that was exposed, off of Southeast Asia. I want to put it closer to my consumer market. Why? Because now I can control my supply chain much quicker. I have flexibility. I have options from a production perspective and from a consumer perspective. In the automotive industry, it's just in time. Things have to happen fast. If there's one single breakdown, if a truck gets stopped at the border, and there's a delay in that transit, you're potentially putting at risk production line. Production line goes down, that's anywhere from $100,000 to $1 million per minute. But think about these companies that were sourcing all of their raw materials, all their parts and accessories to build a car from Southeast Asia, and all the backlog that was being created off the coast of Los Angeles, Long Beach. Right? At one time, there was over 150 ships in line in the ocean waiting to be offloaded. Tremendous backlog. I was fortunate enough to be able to create some solutions for those customers. And what did we do? We rerouted them to Baja California, to Ensenada, where there was zero wait time. Or we rerouted them down to Manzanillo, offloaded those containers into 53-foot trailers, and then exported them from Mexico into the United States. So this is the type of redundancy, once that was found, that we could provide, the type of redundancy, and more importantly, the predictability that we could establish for customers. Going back to the relationship that we have with Mexico. So a couple of things I want to call out here, just super high level. Mexico is now the #1 trading partner with the United States. In 2019, pre-pandemic, we were like always around 2, 3. Canada was 2, 3. They were playing different spots. 2020, market went down. Why? Because again, that exposed the reliance on Chinese supply chain. So what happened? China became #1 trading partner with the United States. We have Liberation Day, we have the first term, second term of the Trump administration, and we see a very intentional pivot away from Southeast Asia into a more North America-centric side of supply. Mexico, #1. Laredo, I mentioned before. If Mexico is the #1 trading partner with the United States, what's the #1 port for the United States? #1 land port for the United States. When I said we're sitting at the center of the universe, we are. 20,000 trucks cross on a daily basis between world trade and Colombia. Laredo is responsible for managing 40% of total overall trade with the United States. We're sitting at the center of the universe. That's why we see what's going to happen in the United States before it makes the news. Okay? I know most of you guys grew up here. You're used to seeing the warehouses and the trucks on the road and everything. It's probably an annoyance, and I get it. But now, hopefully you have some context behind what's happening. Why are those trucks on the road? Why are we seeing all of this construction going on right now? Everything being built out. This is why. So something interesting, Canada, as I said, used to be #2, #3. They actually went down 6.5%, 6% last year in 2025. Look at China, #1 spot, 28, 29%. So 100%, that's because we're pivoting from that Southeast Asia, China-driven supply chain into a more North American-centric. Proof's in the pudding. One really interesting one, look at Taiwan. 61% up year over year. Why do you think that is? Goes back to the robot that was here. Chips. Where are we getting all of our chips? That's the one place where we don't have diversification, right? All of the chip manufacturing is highly, highly centralized in Taiwan. So we see Taiwan went up 61%. Top 5 trading partner now, 100% driven by the AI boom. Another interesting one, Vietnam, 40% up. And then I think a really, really interesting one, look at this. Switzerland, 101% up. Any guesses on why Switzerland? 100% up year over year. What's Switzerland known for? Kia. Chocolate, right? That's what I thought. And I went, whoa, everyone's eating a lot more chocolate. I actually had to research this one. I didn't understand why we could be 101% up. Gold. Institutional investors to hedge against inflation, exporting and importing gold from Switzerland. That's a whole other story, but I thought that was very interesting. So, it kind of gives you a landscape of cross-border trade. So how does a company like Kuehne Nagel come in and manage this? Well, cross-border trade, we understand what's driving the market. It's very complex, though. Okay. There's generally speaking a lack of expertise in the marketplace, and this is where you guys can come in and doing what you're doing, studying what you're studying, or creating a very, very good niche for yourself for future employment. Lack of expertise, what do I mean? Again, I think we take advantage of where we sit, what we see on a daily basis. But if you're a guy sitting in Minnesota, if you're a guy sitting in New York, your boss comes to you and says, I heard about this thing nearshoring. Sounds great. Let's start sending some trucks to Mexico. You think they're going to have the expertise to do that? No. So as a large company, by the way, I guess before I get started on that, does anyone know what a 3PL is? Okay, so a 3PL, it's a third-party logistics company. Third-party logistics company is different than an asset-based company. Why? Because we don't own any assets. We're very asset-light. Gives us flexibility in the marketplace. I'll speak to here in a minute. But one of the things that we can bring to the table for our customers is that we have that expertise. We have that expertise locally. Okay? We have a huge presence along the southern border and within Mexico. We bring that to the table for our customers. Another unfortunate but continued issue in Mexico is security risks, right? So our customers come to us and they say, hey, I want to go and I want to participate in nearshoring. I want to open up a business in Mexico, or I'm already doing business in Mexico. I'm scared of the security issues. I read the news every day. It's nothing but negative news coming out. So help me with security. We have programs for that. Customs delays. I said kind of my origin story is built out of customs delays, right? So within the broad world of cross-border transportation, we have many different stakeholders. One of them is the trucks and the mode of transportation. Another is the compliance side of the business. The compliance side of the business is directly what customs brokers deal with. Having a good understanding of being able to manage modes of transportation and also provide compliance-related value-added services for your customer is a very powerful solution. So at the end of the day, we're taking out these barriers and complexity that exists in cross-border trade, and we're trying to orchestrate and provide a seamless cross-border experience, high level. So shameless plug here, but what does KN look like? As I mentioned, extremely, extremely ingrained in the southern border. If you were to take all of our locations from San Diego, Otay Mesa, all the way down to Brownsville, we have over 1.5 million square feet of warehouse space. Within that warehouse space, we do a lot of different things. We do some traditional cross-docking. We have FTZ zones. We have warehouses on the Mexican side of the border that are EMEX certified. We do order fulfillment, e-commerce, value-added activities like kitting, segregation, labeling, right? A lot of value-added activities for our customers. From a team perspective, we have about 400 different team members supporting cross-border trade in KN along the border and within Mexico. Here in Laredo, I'm proud to say at this point, changing every day, but at this point, we have the largest FTZ in the city right now. So we have 75,000 square feet FTZ off of mile 13. That's part of a 430,000 square foot facility. In El Paso, we just put another 230,000 square feet online in that marketplace. We have 530,000 square feet of warehouse space in El Paso, and that is being driven by AI, high-tech semicon. So I mentioned we're a 3PL. That means we don't own a lot of our assets. We manage assets. We go to carriers, we certify those carriers, we make sure those carriers have security, compliance, right? We certify them, we onboard them as a vendor of ours, and then we design solutions and supply chains, or within the supply chain, for our customers. Again, why? To take that complexity out. Okay. High level 3,000 FTL carriers that we have certified today, that's between the United States and Mexico. More in the United States, but from a cross-border perspective, about 3,000 different carriers. Okay? So a lot of these trucks, some of you guys, your families might own trucking companies. Your cousin might own a trucking company, right? That's asset-based. Again, very, very light. What does that allow us to do in the marketplace? We can be super flexible. Market goes down, we can release contracts. Market goes up, we can buy contracts, right? Allows us to pivot. It allows us to give agnostic solutions to our customers as well. What does that mean? We don't just have access to trucks, we have access to shipping containers, air freight. And again, automotive, everything's just in time. So if we have a truck stuck here at the border for whatever reason, and potentially could shut down a production line in the United States at a high expense, if we're mode neutral, we have the ability to pivot that truck, take it through another port of crossing, put it on a plane, and get it to the production line within hours. Again, creating that redundancy, mitigating risk for our customers. Very important things. Also in-house, we have Mexican customs brokerage, US customs brokerage. So when you're crossing the border, many different stakeholders involved. We're able to go to our customers and say, we're not just crossing a truck from one side of the border to the other, we're also dealing with the regulatory and compliance side of the business for you. So this is super, super high level. Pretend that that doesn't say in bond on there. But what I wanted to give you is a representation of what this typical northbound life cycle of a load is. So within the cross-border supply chain, you have what? A Mexican carrier, Mexican customs broker, Mexican customs, J carrier, US customs broker, US customs, cross-dock facility in the United States along the border, a US carrier, an exporter, an importer. You have anywhere from 7 to 9 different stakeholders at any one time. If we want to be able to influence a positive outcome for those stakeholders, what do the boots on the ground do here for us? They're experts in this process, and they understand the triggers to be able to take ownership of what has to happen for our customers, and they're orchestrating among those different stakeholders. Okay? So as you're going through your classes and you're learning all this stuff, the knowledge is really, really critical to understand how all of these things are, all these stakeholders are interrelated. What's also critical to this, communication skills, critical thinking, super, super critical. I would encourage any of you guys to also try to instill some of that in your educational coursework, because you have to be able to take complex information and provide very precise responses to customers. Okay? You have to be able to take 80% of information, provide 100% of an answer back to your customer. So if your mom or dad or your teacher asks you, why aren't you studying communication, or why aren't you studying critical thinking or philosophy? Oh, I want to be in logistics. Take a class. Take a communications class. Take a philosophy class. Take a logics class. It's going to help you tremendously navigating this supply chain. Continue with the video.
Can a label revolutionize your logistics?
You hear that okay?
The answer is yes. But not just any label. This label is developed by our technology partner course.
I turn this up. So, before I get into that, I want to leave you guys with a video, because one of the things I didn't touch on that's super critical in the supply chain is technology. Our customers expect that we have a wide breadth of technology, right? Our customers want to be able to see in real time what's happening with their shipment. We've all ordered something on Amazon before, right? As consumers, our expectation is, I ordered it yesterday. Amazon told me it was going to be here tomorrow. Where's my shipment? We're pre-programmed almost to the point of having that type of visibility in our lives. So you go work for a company, you take that back to your job, and your expectation is you have the same type of visibility, right? It's very, very challenging when you're dealing with multiple stakeholders crossing the border to be able to drive that type of visibility for customers. So one of the things that we're working on is this. This happens to be in Europe. You're speaking French. There's subtitles. You have to do a little reading. But we're starting to integrate this into our cross-border supply chain solutions as well. And this is how we're driving that visibility for our customers.
Can a label revolutionize your logistics? The answer is yes. But not just any label. This label is developed by our technology partner course. With embedded sensors, it sends thousands of data points to a platform, delivering what we call max visibility, with actionable and predictive insights at an item level. It's a game changer for our customers like Le Pub.
Le groupe Le Pape est un groupe de distribution d'articles de sport et de mobilité urbaine, d'articles premium. Pour nous, ce qui est très important, c'est la durabilité et la résistance du produit avec de la qualité dans tous les cas de figure.
Nous sommes dans le centre de Paris. Nous avons 2 livraisons par semaine, les mardis et les vendredis matins. Rue d'Artois, c'est le plus gros magasin du réseau. Donc c'est notre flagship.
Auparavant, il nous manquait le trait d'union entre nos entrepôts et notre client final et nos clients magasins. Nous avons échangé de cette problématique avec le transporteur Kuehne Nagel.
Le Pape store staff often found themselves waiting for deliveries, with the unpredictable Paris traffic leading to a broad delivery time window. During this time, employees responsible for receiving the goods were on standby, unable to focus on other tasks because they had to be ready the moment the shipment arrived. We freed up that time with max visibility, streamlining the logistics and staff planning and boosting overall store efficiency. Once the label is paired with a shipment, the PAP can track the goods at an item level, or in their case, at a pallet level. Even when the pallets are moved onto another vehicle or the warehouse just outside of Paris, live tracking continues, without having to scan or otherwise account for the goods.
Nous avons déployé avec Kuehne Nagel Max Visibility sur nos magasins de la région parisienne et de Paris intramuros. Il y a une douzaine de magasins qui sont concernés.
Ça nous permet de nous organiser avec les équipes, des heures de départ de la marchandise, des horaires d'arrivée pour les jours de livraison. C'est un plus pour vraiment l'organisation en interne des équipes.
The PAP uses predictive ETAs that are calculated using historical and real-time data. And they can set up alerts for store staff when a delivery truck is approaching, saving time by avoiding back and forth track and trace conversations.
Pour nous, ce serait difficile de revenir en arrière, surtout pour mon responsable de transport qui suit les camions et les palettes tous les jours.
Donc, si je devais du coup résumer en 3 mots la solution Max Visibility, je dirais du coup simple d'utilisation, innovant et communicatif.
Avec Max Visibility, nous avons une logistique 180 degrés qui nous permet de répondre à l'ensemble de besoins de nos clients.
All right. So logistics isn't just a one dynamic industry. Getting the knowledge, very, very important. It's a multi-dynamic industry, right? So maybe, I think most people sitting here are obviously interested in logistics, but maybe you're also really interested in coding, electronics, AI. There's still tremendous value that companies like Kuehne need. I think we're doing pretty good on time. That was my last slide. I really, really appreciate everybody's time. I hope it was informative for you. I hope you learned something. I hope you're inspired a little bit to continue your journey. And I think we have some time. I'll end it there, but I think we have some time for some Q&A. So any brave souls out there? Yes, ma'am.
How important customer service is for the industry and how the students here need to provide that great customer service to the client?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. Customer service is number one. It's the number one thing that we do, right? Everyone speaks about technology. Everyone speaks about the infrastructure that we have, global capabilities. At the end of the day, if we don't have relationships with our customers, we're not effectively going to be able to execute on what we've promised our customers, right? I've been in many situations where technology fails, unfortunately. How do we solve a failure of technology? With a human relationship. You have to be able to be intimately familiar with your customers' wants, demands, anticipate what those wants and demands are going to be, communicate that, be extremely proactive. Our industry is 100% customer-centric, a very, very critical piece of being successful. Yes.
Being the large company that you are globally, how does your company manage political risk? And my question goes back to what just recently happened in Mexico. How how is that? Do you have specific protocols that deal with specific countries, or how do you handle that type for your customers?
Great question. So I think in the world of trade, geopolitical risk is always there, right? We're a global company. We exist in almost every country in the world. So there's always some sort of level of geopolitical risk. I don't own any trucks, but or you don't know anyone that owns any trucks. It's a great question. So there's a lot of different applications so we use internal protocol, and then we have some external protocol companies that specifically deal with carrier vetting and validation, both in the United States and Mexico. So certainly size of fleet, years in service, total revenue generated, customer comes, where is that AI going to start giving you? It's going to take care and strip away some inefficiencies in an organization, but where is it going to start doing like predictive type of analysis to be able to take some of the critical thinking skills away from the desk level and put that into the AI level, right? So have we felt the effect? 100%. Is it still in the evolutionary phase? 100%. Do we know what that end future is going to look like? Depends who you talk to. But if you're studying it now, you'll be way ahead of us old guys, that's for sure. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Luca. Great presentation. So you touch upon different opportunities like air, shipping and all that. And given that, nearshoring came as to decrease risk, right? You said something about China. Given the geopolitics of the day, let's say Venezuela, or even go to the Panama Channel, right? So what is the opportunity for our region if this were to hold and American investments would increase, let's say in Venezuela and other places? What would you say that we need to teach our students and as professionals, what is the area, the main area of opportunity?
Yeah, great question. So let me just bring up this map again. So fundamental, and I think as you're extending your education and career, is having I mentioned critical thinking, I mentioned communication. Also fundamental to being successful in our industry is having a really good understanding of geopolitics, right? What's happening in any one location here, specifically in Mexico, and what could be the effect of international trade. Because if you know that, then that's information and knowledge you can empower your customers with, right? So you mentioned Panama Canal, you mentioned Venezuela. I think actually Panama Canal, the port owner, I believe, just relinquished their owner rights there, and it's being taken over by, I want to say BlackRock, don't quote me on that. But who is the owner of that port? It's a Chinese company, right? And I think that goes again directly to kind of this, we've heard America first, this goes to a North America first type of policy that this administration is trying to roll out. So how does that, so as everyone knows, we sit right about here, right? One of the things I didn't touch on is why is Laredo responsible for 40% of all trade coming out of Mexico? You can take that further down into Central America. You can take that further all the way really to South America, right? Is it because we're doing something special? We have a secret in the water, right? I'd like to think that because I live here, but it's really geographic location, right? So if you look at these clusters and where all of the interior of Mexico exists, the path of least resistance is crossing in Laredo, Texas. That's why we're capturing 40% of all trade coming through the United States of Mexico. I-35 north and south, I-10 east and west, right? This is what gives this port our competitive advantage. And I think that we'll see that being replicated. And really, if there's additional chaos in the marketplace, that doesn't change our geographic position to be able to continue servicing and being flexible. Additionally, we're seeing, you drive up I-35, you're seeing all the construction going on there, right? 2023, 2024, really 2023, there was less than 1% of available warehouse space in the entire market. It was a huge commodity to have in Laredo. I believe going into 2025, or sorry, 2026, 2027, it's almost 100% more inventory that's coming into the marketplace. Right? And that's just a representation of really investors' belief that this is going to continue to grow, trade with the United States and Mexico, and Laredo is going to continue to support that growth.
So historically, what is the role that of the railroad, the Kansas City Southern Railroad, in making Laredo, the main port of entry?
Great question. I didn't mention you should also study history in your career. So my history is a little light on that. Be very transparent with you. I will say though that the railroad between the United States and Mexico was really the first form, the first mode of trade. The first mode of linking the two countries together, right? It continues to be a very integral part of all supply chains, but I also think it's very commodity specific, right? So if we think about, just put it in an automotive perspective, there's large, heavy things that are involved, like frames, undercarriages of vehicles, that are part of the manufacturing process, that they're not under an expedited urgency to get into the production line. Intermodal trains, that works very good. That type of mode works very good in those type of scenarios, right? So what you will see in automotive supply chain, again, that kind of multimodal integration into feeding the plant. Great question. Hopefully that answers it a little bit. Historical level, that's homework for all of us, so. Any other questions? If they're passing the mic over.
Hello, nice presentation again. I want to ask, what would a student that is not sure what they would want to do, what advice would you give for us high school students or college students to be able to apply for something like this company?
Get an internship. Knock on a door. Be proactive. Right? Resumes are important. Going through an interview process is important. It's like exercising. You have to do it over and over and over again. Start now. By the time you've graduated, by the time you're actually ready to get your first job, that repetition in that process is going to be ingrained in you. Best way to do that, raise your hand, knock on doors, say, I have an interest, I want to be an intern. There's lots of companies like KN coming into the marketplace now that are global companies. We didn't see this even 5 years ago. Predominantly, the Laredo market was regionally driven from the businesses that existed here. Right now, we have a lot of global companies coming in. Be proactive. Go and knock on their doors. Figure out what you have to bring. Right? Other than your motivation, start the process. Start the process now. I know many companies that it's a great way. We take in interns. Previous company I worked for had a great internship program as well. Go through the process, and that's gonna expose you, number one, to the industry. You're gonna see different elements in different departments, and you're either gonna say, "Oh my gosh, I love this," They're going to say, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Thank goodness I did this. I want to go be an accountant instead. I think you had a question.
Yes, thank you for the presentation, first of all. I wanted to ask, the future of Laredo seems bright for a lot of people who are in this community. What do you see as the, I guess you can say, enabler for that next chapter of Laredo, whether if it's, warehousing, manufacturing? It doesn't seem like manufacturing. It seems like Mexico's got it down. But what would you say is something that our community and the local leaders here are kind of like required to do to get to that next step, which is, I don't know, like I said, warehousing or more transportation or whatever the case may be? What do you see is the future of Laredo?
So I think, great question. I think something that's very interesting is Laredo used to be a complete pass-through market. What do I mean by that? All the trucks coming in and out, that freight's it's not stopping here, it's not being consumed here, right? We're a very small consumer market. And those trucks are going to DC's distribution centers somewhere else in the interior of the United States, where they're offloaded, segregated, and orders are being fulfilled, let's say from Dallas or from Chicago to other different final destinations, right? I think Laredo has a very, very good potential to start filling those type of workflows that happen in interior DCs and setting those final destination orders here from the port, right? So that creates a more dynamic type of utilization of the commercial and industrial space that's coming on. Before it was just unload a trailer, load a trailer, short-term storage, right? If we can capture the value add that's happening in the interior of the United States, we have the infrastructure, we have speed to market because we're getting the truck immediately, right? And we probably have a lower cost to serve from here than if those activities were happening in Chicago or in the interior, right? Let's say north of San Antonio type of markets. And I think there's a lot of customers that are looking at that are highly researching that right now. And I think some of that is what's responsible for seeing all of the infrastructure that's being built here. Now, from a city level, that's a federal, state, and local stakeholders have to come together to make that happen, right? Behind the scenes, a little more complex, but I think we're going to see that's what starts driving the market.
All right. Well, thank you. If there's any other questions, we're going to close it off here. Thank you, Mr. Luca Winters, for excellent presentation. Let's give him a round of applause, please.
Thank you.
So before we conclude today, I just wanted to present Mr. Winters here with a certificate of appreciation from the Global Logistics Center. It says here, Logistic Lectures, guest speaker for February 26, 2026. Your collaboration strengthens our logistics and distribution program and helps develop the new generation of professionals. Your presentation was excellent. We enjoyed it. I'm sure everybody got a lot of information out of it. And we also have a small token of appreciation for your participation today. And we thank everybody coming out here today. It is excellent turnout. We're super happy. And we're already working on the next installment that should be coming around in April. We'll send out notifications as well. And I think this is excellent. So I appreciate everybody coming out this morning. Have an excellent day. And Mr. Winters will be here for a couple of minutes if anybody wants to come up and ask some follow-up questions with him. Yep. Oh, and before we go, we would like to take a picture with our students and if everybody wants to come in. I mean, so let's get that set up real quick.
Thank you all very much.